Some relationships don't fall apart with shouting, they die in deadly silence. No one hits you, no one yells, but day by day, you feel drained, small, and more distant from yourself. And the scariest part, you keep staying, not out of love, but out of guilt. If you've ever asked yourself, is it time to let go? This video is your answer. I'll walk you through 9 undeniable signs it's time to walk away, even if that person once meant everything to you. Don't skip this, because waking up one day sooner might just save your life. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and like if you're new here. It helps me keep bringing you more valuable content. There's a kind of relationship that doesn't need insults or fists. It's not loud, it's not violent, but it eats you alive from the inside. Day by day you shrink, you go quiet, you make yourself smaller, just to keep the so-called peace. But that peace isn't peace, it's surrender. You used to be strong, you had opinions, you knew who you were. But then, because they're family, because they were there for you once, because you don't want to hurt them, you started living like a side character in your own damn life. Smiling when you want to cry, nodding when you want to scream, staying silent when you know something's wrong. Stop lying to yourself. You're not staying out of love, you're staying out of fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of being judged, fear of losing what's called a close relationship. But what you're really sacrificing isn't peace. It's your inner freedom, your truth, your honor as someone who knows where they're going and what they stand for. And here's the brutal part. The more you tolerate, the more they take. Once you teach someone that you'll swallow your anger to keep the peace, they'll make you swallow it forever. You gave them control, and they're not giving it back. Don't blame them. You handed them the chain. So what's the solution? Courage. Stand up and walk out. You don't have to cut ties overnight. You don't need to yell. You don't need a Cold War. But you do need to stand tall, look in the mirror, and ask, am I still being real with myself? If the answer is no, your first job isn't to fix them. It's to reclaim yourself. Start telling the truth. Start pushing back. Start refusing to apologize for how you feel. Whoever can handle it will stay. Whoever can't will walk away. And you need to learn to accept that as part of growing the hell up. A relationship worth having never demands that you erase yourself to preserve it. Listen, real men don't live like shadows beside someone else. If you have to shrink, pretend, or wear a mask to survive a relationship, that's not love. It's emotional slavery. And if you keep going like that, no one's going to kill you. You'll wear yourself down until there's nothing left worth protecting. To be a man, you first have to be yourself. Every relationship comes after that. If someone can't accept the real you, walking away isn't betrayal, it's liberation. Some people don't need to yell or insult you. Just being around them for 15 minutes is enough to make your mind heavy, your body sluggish, and your energy feel sucked dry. That's not a coincidence. That's a sign you're being drained by a toxic relationship. Every time you pick up the phone, you sigh. Every meetup feels like a mental prep session. You know you'll walk away frustrated, exhausted, or feeling a little smaller than when you arrived. The worst part? This doesn't happen once. It happens all the time. And you've gotten so used to it, you call it normal. No, it's not normal. Whether it's family, friends, or a partner, they don't get to be the reason you're emotionally wiped out. If every interaction feels like a mind game, a guessing match, or a tense negotiation where you always end up giving in, that's not connection. That's emotional torture. A lot of people won't admit this. They make excuses. They're going through a tough time. I'm the only one who understands them. Or worse, it's fine, I can handle it. But what you're doing isn't love. It's conditional endurance. And the price is your own life force. Every time you let it slide, you lose a piece of your positive energy. Every time you try to keep the peace, you let that dark weight grow stronger in your life. You weren't made to be someone else's emotional dumping ground. If they can't manage their own negativity, it's not your job to carry it. Love doesn't mean becoming the landing pad for someone else's anger, complaints, or jealousy. Love is shared, not drained. And don't kid yourself with "I'm strong enough to take it." That's not strength. That's negligence. Every day you let yourself get drained, you're sending a message to yourself that other people's emotions matter more than your mental health. The solution isn't to become better at taking the hit. The solution is to clearly recognize your emotional limits and protect them like your life depends on it. Because your emotional energy is your life. Once it's gone, you've got nothing left to give, nothing left to live for, and worst of all, nothing left to love yourself with. So if someone leaves you exhausted after every interaction, ask yourself, why am I still holding on to them? Because I care, or because I'm afraid to lose them? That answer will tell you everything. Whether this relationship is feeding your soul or slowly killing you. Forgiveness is a strength, but forgiving the same mistake on repeat, that's not compassion anymore. It's self-destruction. A lot of people stay stuck in toxic relationships because they believe nobody's perfect, everyone makes mistakes. True, but a mistake only has value if someone learns from it, not if it's constantly justified by your kindness. Face it, if someone keeps hurting you, keeps apologizing, and then keeps doing the exact same thing, they're not making mistakes. They're making choices. They know you'll forgive them, so they don't need to change. They use your soft heart as a shield to keep acting like crap without facing consequences. Every time you forgive someone who isn't truly sorry, you're teaching them that hurting you isn't a big deal. They can wound you, say some sweet words, shed a few tears, promise a little change, and the cycle begins again. But with every cycle, you get more tired, more broken. You start doubting yourself. Worst of all, you begin blaming yourself. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I didn't say it the right way. If I tried harder, maybe they wouldn't act like this. You start making excuses for someone else's behavior, and that's the first step toward eroding your self-worth. Remember this, forgiveness doesn't mean erasing the past and pretending nothing happened. Real forgiveness means seeing a mistake, witnessing real change, and then deciding to move forward. If there's no change, what you're calling forgiveness is just a permission slip for more pain. And if you're still clinging to hope, maybe they'll realize, maybe they'll change. Let me be blunt. You're not loving them. You're gambling your trust and your future on a fantasy. People only change when they want to, not because you loved them enough or forgave them deep enough. The way out? Draw a clear line, not for them, but for yourself. One mistake? Forgive it. Twice? Caution. Third time and beyond? That's a survival choice. Stay and keep getting hurt, or walk away and save yourself. Ending a relationship is not failure. Unconditional forgiveness is failure, because it makes you an accomplice in prolonging your own pain. And never forget this. If someone truly values you, they won't keep putting you in the position to forgive them this much. If this video made you think, hit like now. Comment below. How have you applied Stoicism in your life? Stoic success, unbreakable mindset, total control. One of the most subtle traps in toxic relationships is the feeling of debt. It's not a steel chain, it's an emotional rope that tightens little by little until you're suffocating and don't even realize it. They helped you once. They were there when you hit rock bottom. They did something that made you feel grateful for life. And from that moment on, the relationship shifted. It stopped being a partnership between two independent people and turned into an unspoken contract where you're the one permanently in debt. You stay, not out of respect, but because you don't dare to leave. You don't dare to speak the truth. You don't dare to live freely according to your values. You don't want to upset them. You don't want them to think you're ungrateful. And above all, you're afraid of being labeled a traitor. Sound familiar? That's emotional manipulation dressed in moral clothing, a chain disguised as loyalty. But ask yourself, if it's truly loyalty, why does it make you feel small, guilty, and wrong just for living your truth? Family, friendship, love. Without mutual respect, they're just forms of emotional bondage. Respect means being allowed to disagree, to set boundaries, to evolve. Guilt does the opposite. It traps you in place, forces you to endure, demands you sacrifice, just so the other person doesn't feel let down. Tragically, many people live in these kinds of relationships for decades. They learn to stay silent. to do everything as a way of repaying a debt, until they don't even realize they lost the right to their own life long ago. They think living this way is noble, but really, it's the fastest way to bury yourself in bitterness. If your life feels like, I owe them so I can't, you're not living. You're paying emotional installments on a life that should have been yours. And here's the worst part. The more they sense you owe them, the more they demand. The more you yield, the more they control. That's the law of emotional debt. The solution? Take a hard look at your own worth. You can be grateful, but that doesn't give anyone the right to dictate how you live. You can thank the past, but your duty is to live fully in the present as the person you were meant to become. Ending a relationship isn't betrayal. Continuing a broken one out of guilt, that's the real insult to both you and them. If someone truly loves and respects you, they'll never want you to live in guilt. Real love, real loyalty, never asks you to shrink to be accepted. It's the space where you can stand tall, head held high, and still be looked at with respect. If every time you speak your truth it turns into a battlefield, congratulations, you're not in a relationship, you're in an emotional trench war. This is one of the clearest signs of emotional inequality. You speak honestly, they fire back. You give feedback, they get defensive. You express pain, they play the victim. Sound familiar? Way too familiar. At first, you still try to speak up, but over time, you learn to shut down, not because you've forgiven, but because you're too tired to fight. So you start hiding your feelings, forcing smiles, walking on eggshells. You say things that are safe. You plan to bring it up later, but never do. And just like that, the truth gets suffocated. Trust erodes. You become a smiling shell in a relationship where honesty has no home. What's more dangerous than anger? Losing your right to be real. A mature relationship has to make room for truth, even when it stings. It's not always smooth. It's not always easy. But if truth always leads to arguments, guilt trips, or manipulation, you're living in emotional toxicity. You have the right to speak your pain without being labeled too sensitive. You have the right to offer feedback without being called critical. You have the right to disagree without having your worth questioned. No one has the right to make you feel wrong just for being honest. People say, the truth hurts. Sure, but if someone can't handle the truth, they don't deserve a front row seat in your life. You can't build a future with someone who sees honesty as a threat and fakeness as the solution. The fix isn't to learn to say it nicer. That's just pain on delay. The fix is to face the core truth. If someone can't receive honesty like an adult, then you're not with a partner. You're with an underdeveloped ego. Truth may sting, but it wakes you up. It grows you. Pretending everything's fine just kills you slowly in silence. So ask yourself, do you want a relationship that looks peaceful or one that's actually real? If you have to choose between lonely truth and crowded lies, remember this. The truth might stand alone, but it's the only thing left standing when all the masks fall off. In a healthy relationship, you're allowed to speak. You're allowed to share what's hurting you, what's not okay, what makes you feel insecure or uneasy, without being cut off by an eye roll or a dismissive, "You're being dramatic." But in some relationships, every time you open your mouth, it feels like a courtroom. The other person isn't listening to understand. They're listening to prosecute. The moment you say something that doesn't fit their expectations, you're instantly labeled too negative, too sensitive, too judgmental, or ungrateful. You start holding back, because you know it'll be twisted. Every bit of sadness will be called irrational moodiness. Every need for connection will be painted as selfish. Every attempt at feedback will be spun into disrespect. The pain isn't that they disagree. The pain is that they don't even try to understand. They use logic to judge your emotions and call it fairness. But how fair is a relationship where only they get to be right? A relationship without listening is a power play. The loudest voice wins, the best debater dominates, the calmest face gets to decide who's wrong. And you know what? That's not communication, it's control disguised as reason. Listening takes humility. It means setting your ego aside, stepping back, and asking, what made you feel this way? But judgmental people don't do that. They don't explore your emotions, they dissect your words, hunting for flaws in your delivery. And you? Over time, you start self-editing. You silence thoughts before they're even words because you know they'll be twisted. You pretend you're fine because every time you're not, you're branded a burden. You stop being yourself. You become a filtered version that's easier for them to digest. If you're in a relationship like that, take a step back and ask yourself, when was the last time I truly felt heard? If you can't remember, it's because you're not with a partner. You're with someone watching your life like a critic waiting for you to slip. And here's the truth you need to tattoo on your soul. You don't have to apologize for how you feel. You're allowed to hurt. You're allowed to be vulnerable. You're allowed to not make sense sometimes. But you still deserve to be heard, seen, and understood, not dissected, graded, and shut down. A mature relationship doesn't try to fix you. It walks with you so you both grow. If someone only knows how to judge you and never cares to understand you, the problem isn't you. The problem is them, and the fact that you've let them walk too far into your life. When a relationship makes you feel wrong just for putting yourself first, the problem isn't that you're selfish. It's that you've been conditioned to forget that you're human too. It sounds insane, but some relationships convince you that rest is laziness, setting boundaries is cold, saying no is betrayal, and spending time alone means you're distant. They don't have to say it outright. They show it through disappointed looks, passive-aggressive comments, or that classic guilt-laced line, "Fine, do what you want." Over time, you start apologizing for the smallest things, for not answering the phone immediately, for skipping a meetup, for going to the gym instead of helping them clean their house. You even feel guilty for being happy if they're not okay. You become a machine for managing their emotions. They're sad, you show up. They're angry, you calm them down. They need something, you reshuffle your life to make it happen. And slowly, you start equating self-sacrifice with self-worth. You tell yourself, if I'm not always available, I don't deserve love. Worse yet, you start turning on yourself. Am I being selfish? Am I changing too much? Am I abandoning them? But here's what you forget. If someone truly loves you, they'll want you to be well. They'll support you taking care of yourself. They won't make you justify it. Self-care isn't distance, it's duty. It's how you make sure you're stable enough to love others in a healthy way. If you never prioritize yourself, you will burn out, turn resentful, and end up blaming the very people you love for not understanding you, not caring enough, not meeting expectations. Here's the painful truth. If you don't know how to love yourself, you don't know how to love anyone else, at least not in a way that lasts. You'll turn love into a burden, a debt, a race to prove you're enough. The solution isn't to become cold, it's to be clear. To be able to say, I love you, but I'm not alive just to keep you comfortable. You need time for yourself. You need space to breathe. You need the right to not be okay, to say no, to prioritize your mental health without feeling like a criminal for doing it. A relationship that makes you feel guilty for self-care isn't love, it's control, dressed up as concern. And if you don't cut that cord in time, one day you'll wake up in a life where you don't even recognize who's living inside your own skin. No one walks into a relationship hoping it falls apart. And when things start to crack, the first instinct of a good person isn't to walk away. It's to try. You try to talk, you try to adjust, you read books, you compromise, you bite your tongue to keep the peace. You give up your hobbies, shift your lifestyle, just to better fit into their world. You give it everything you've got. But here's the problem. They don't. And you know it. You see the apathy, the quiet resistance, the same mistakes happening again and again. But because you've already poured so much into it, you're scared to walk away. You tell yourself, just one more try. Maybe they need more time. Maybe I'm still not doing enough. If I just change a bit more, maybe everything will turn around. But time goes on, and nothing changes. In fact, it gets worse. Because now it's not just the relationship falling apart, it's you. You're no longer the upbeat, confident, independent person you once were. You've become tired, anxious, unsure of yourself. You feel like you have to fix something to save this, and here's the trap. You're trying to carry the weight of change that was never supposed to be yours alone. Here's the brutal truth. A relationship only transforms when both people are willing to change. If you're the only one trying, while the other just takes and stays the same, you're building a house on a swamp. It doesn't matter how good you are, how much effort you give. If the foundation's rotten, it all collapses, and you'll be the one buried under it because you refuse to let go. Effort matters, but stubbornness kills. There's a thin line between perseverance and self-destruction, and too many people cling to a toxic relationship simply because they feel they've gone too far to turn back. But listen, you don't owe anyone a miserable life just because you loved them with everything you had. If you've tried, if you've forgiven, if you've sacrificed, if you've communicated honestly, and still nothing's changed, then there's nothing else you need to do. You don't have to twist yourself any further to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. The only thing you do need to do is walk away. Because if you stay, you won't just lose the relationship, you'll lose yourself. Some relationships are already empty. No more love, no real connection, no hope for change, and yet they drag on for one reason. You're afraid of the guilt that comes with letting go. You're afraid they'll be hurt, that they'll fall apart if you leave. You're afraid you'll be labeled the bad one, afraid of judgmental looks, of whispers behind your back. Why now? Ungrateful, aren't they? How selfish. You can't bear the thought of someone else suffering because of your choice, so you stay. Not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of guilt. But here's a hard truth. Pity cannot sustain a relationship. Staying out of guilt doesn't make you noble. It makes you live a lie. And you think they don't feel it? They do. The fake smile, the forced words, the distant eyes. They know. You've left them in your mind long ago. Only your body remains, trapped in the role of the good person. This isn't love anymore. It's mutual emotional torture. They hurt because they don't understand your coldness. You hurt because you can't be honest. And the pain lingers, festers, rots you both. From one thing, the fear of being seen as heartless. But you need to understand this. You are not obligated to stay in a relationship that slowly kills you. Guilt is useful when it prevents us from doing harm, but when it keeps you from escaping harm, it's no longer morality. It's a shackle. You can love someone and still choose to leave, because love doesn't mean staying at all costs. Sometimes the most mature form of love is letting go, not to hurt, but to free. Both of you. The guilt will pass, but wasted years won't come back. Ask yourself, can I live like this for another year? 5 years? 10? If the answer is no, then the next move isn't an apology. It's leaving, with whatever dignity remains for both sides. Staying for love is bravery. Staying out of guilt is betrayal of yourself. You can keep telling yourself things will get better. But if you've read this far, you already know they won't, unless you act. Any relationship that costs you your truth, your energy, your self-respect, and your identity isn't one you should stay in, no matter who the other person is. Change always hurts. Leaving is always hard. But nothing is more painful than waking up each morning in a life you no longer recognize, just because you were afraid of being disliked, afraid of being alone, afraid of being wrong. Freedom doesn't come from pleasing others. It comes from having the guts to live in truth. Don't wait for one more heartbreak to wake up. You don't need anyone's permission to live with boundaries, truth, and dignity. Cutting ties isn't failure. Staying in the wrong relationship, that's the slow death of your soul. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.